That's 1, 2, 3. Welcome, everybody. I'll go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd all rise. And I can. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to have probably a shorter meeting. We don't have a speaker due to Veterans Day, but I would like to introduce our officers. Eric Troff is Vice President. He's not here. Bruce Schwartz is our Secretary. Gordon Barron, our Treasurer. And Steve Morris, who is in Hawaii. And our at-large board members, Dan Cook, he's doing Veterans Day, and he's doing the Patriots Pantry. Sharon Bender, who does legislative and the barbecue cookout. Don Seymour, who does fallen veterans. Carol Taylor, who does whatever we ask her to do. Who does logo wear. And Bob Whalen, who also does fallen veterans. Then we want to thank Mark. I know he's in the room, or at least he was. He left, okay. He was in the room. I wanted to thank him for the donuts and Dennis for picking them up. They all made it this morning. Okay, the next thing on the program is fallen veterans. And Bob, are you doing that? Yeah. Okay.
We have this working? Well, we turn it on. Hear me now? Yep, hear me now. We have two fallen veterans to remember at this time. The first one is David Forgue. David was in the U.S. Army between 1968 and 1970. He has passed away, and we want to remember him. The other one that we want to remember is Richard Long. And I don't know if all of you know that Richard kind of did his little autobiography thing. He's a man of many words, and he kind of wrote his own little military autobiography. Some of you may have seen that on our email list, but I wanted to make sure those of you who haven't seen that to listen to what he said about himself. It kind of explains him as no one else can. This writing becomes an autobiographical. It's my story, short and not terribly exciting. When I graduated with an associate degree in business and accounting, I immediately became draft eligible. I had a low number, so I chose to enlist in the Air Force. Basic training and tech school were at Amarillo Air Force Base. Upon completion, I received my first orders. I listed an Air Force Base 25 miles into the tundra from Fairbanks, Alaska. I was devastated. When the fog cleared, I realized it wasn't Vietnam. It was, after all, 1967. My duties for 18 months were to track flight crews of B-52s and KC-135 aircraft as they went temporary duty in and out of Vietnam. That job followed me to both of my next duty stations, Clinton Sherman Air Force Base, Oklahoma, and KIA Sawyer Air Force Base, Marquette, Michigan. It was in Alaska. I ended up accidentally being AWOL. An office mate had a cousin that was in the winter caretaker, in the McKinley Lodge. He invited me to go with him to the closed hotel for the Christmas holiday. In 1967, one train each week went from Fairbanks to Anchorage and then back to Fairbanks. The hotel is only stopped in each direction. We disembarked and were met by the entire winter community, about 20 people. We had a great fun raiding the kitchen to find huge salad bowls to use as sleds. Long story short, we missed the train on its return to Fairbanks. Our host called in a bush pilot to rescue us. We slunk back into the office a day late. Thankfully, no one was any the wiser. It's been an absolute joy to interview our honored veterans and to write these stories for the last 26 months. Reminiscing has brought tears and laughter. There's been joy and education. And I have seen dedication beyond expectations. The Sunflower veteran population is truly a group of honorable men and women. I thank them all for this opportunity. Let's stand, tap. Thank you all, and I'd like to acknowledge some of the friends of Richard and or David who are here, and thank you all for coming.
And because we have no speaker, we're asking that anybody that wants to say something about Richard, you're more than welcome to. We got a microphone. We'll go around and.
Thank you. I had a great privilege not only knowing Richard, but working with him for about 6 years, and then got very involved in his passions with the homeless, working down on 22nd Street, out at the VA with the homeless program. When the Patriot Pantry program first got announced at the VA, Richard took that on with a great passion and commitment. I went shopping with him at Costco about once a month. I thought my wife was bad. Man, that guy can shop, I'll tell you. He was not only somebody that I spent probably 3 days a week with, talking about ideas and commitments and passions that he had, but he became a good friend. And it's really challenging because not only was he strong with veterans, my granddaughter about 2 years ago was severely burned from the neck up. And Richard said, tell me a little bit about what is she like? What does she know? And I shared some stories with her about her. And he called me one day and he said, you might want to come look at this. And he had made her a quilt and honored all those things that she loved. And then about 2 months later, my other granddaughter is an aerialist and fell off the cliff in the ceiling, broke, and she came down, broke her arm. And a couple of weeks later, Richard called me up and said, I got something for you. And I came over and he made another quilt for my other granddaughter. He also made coasters for my son who retired from the Army, and my other son-in-law was in the Navy. Like I said, we had a good relationship, and it was ironic because I would even buy quilts from him And then he would turn around and donate them to the Veterans Club, all the money that he received. I'll miss him a great deal. I miss his laugh, I miss his smile, I miss his commitment. Everybody at the VA will miss him. I know he was involved with the other Veterans Club, like Marana and Sun City. So we'll miss him a great deal.
Well, I am double shocked in a sense, was found out that Richard had passed away. By the way, I'm Gary Hayden. That's not all of you probably know who I am. Anyway, that it was certainly a shock. He was a special friend of mine and some others. The first thing that I have to talk about is Veterans Club. Every day that we met at Veterans Club, I would walk in and say, Richard, I'll buy you a donut today. He said, no, I'll buy the donut today. Now you understand that donuts are free. So we had that dialogue every time we came to a Veterans Club meeting. We talked about the quilts that Richard made. Might be interested in how that started. He was home for a break from going to college, then was bored. And so his mother said, okay, come here, I'm going to teach you how to quilt. She sat him down and they started working and developing, and he was learning how to quilt. Well, it became a lifetime avocation for him to make quilts. So he was really fascinating. I first got to know Richard in a neighborhood coffee group that we met Monday through Friday every morning at 8 o'clock. And a group of us would come together in our neighborhood and some outside the neighborhood, and just to talk smart and enjoy each other's company. Well, that ended when COVID hit, for obvious reasons. So after that calmed down some, there were 4 of us that we decided that we were going to continue the tradition, not every day, but every 2 weeks or so, 4 of us would get together for coffee, and some very where we would go for coffee. And again, we'd talk smart and enjoy it. But the things I remember about his dedication was how he supported Sunflower, certainly supported the Veterans Club. He worked in the soup kitchen, volunteered there, and you've heard of other places where he's worked. So he made a tremendous impact. And certainly his commitment to society, to other people, to Sunflower will long be remembered. Certainly I'll remember him as a friend that I had here in Sunflower.
I loved Richard Long. He was a wonderful person, and he was very caring, and he was excellent to work with. Some leaders, you just want to work your butt off to help support what they're doing. And the way that he would take some of our functions, like the cookouts, the leftover food from different clubs here in the association, and see that it didn't go to waste. I just admired the way he did it. And the records he kept were so amazing, because back in the Don and Dick days, we would have some kind of an event and we'd have some notes. But Dick would tell you that they had 2.6 cups of coffee and 4.1 donuts. And it was all in a notebook for other people to follow later on. And he, as well as every new president of this club has brought something new to it to make a better club. And he certainly brought his share.
would just like to remind everybody that Richard was a friend to a lot of people outside of the Veterans Club. He did a lot for our community as a whole. He brought people together. He had a laugh like no one. I visited him in Santa Cruz in September, or I'm sorry, Las Cruces in September. And we talked a lot about Sunflower and how he felt about his move there. His one comment was, I may have been too old for this move. I don't think he was, but I also got the message from him that he missed everyone at Sunflower and he thought about all of us at Sunflower. He was a person like no other, and he is missed.
I don't know if I can get through this, but we had a true blessing to have Richard in my life for the last year. He had an infectious smile. He was joyful. I just didn't have enough time with him. God puts people in our lives. We don't never know how much time we're going to have with that person, but I would cherish every single moment and memory that I had of him. We went out to happy hour, to AAW with him at his home, and he was the most beautiful person that I have ever known. And I certainly cherish this last year that I had with him.
Well, you've heard everybody say, Richard was a great guy, a nice guy and all that, and it's true. And I certainly enjoyed his company over the years, but in Yiddish, there's a word called, it's mensch, and that's Richard. Mensch means a real guy, a real person who does the right thing all the time. A good person, and that's what Richard was. The only time I disagreed with him on anything, he asked me to take the job of picking up the donuts for the vets meeting all the time. And I said, well, I'd gladly do it. I said, but I have to suspect your judgment here, because trusting me with 4 dozen donuts is not a smart thing to do. But he just laughed it off and he trusted me, and so now I have that job. By the way, Larry, he also promised me I'd get a raise. But anyway, he was a mensch. He truly was a mensch. He's the definition of what mensch is in Yiddish. And like everyone else, we'll miss him greatly.
I just have to say that Tom Shambo got me involved in this group. Got me elected, if that you can call it that, as a member at large. And then Richard informed me that I was going to be in charge of Veterans Day. So I took that and think, well, I did it. And of course, my first Veterans Day with Richard, I had COVID. So I handed him the agenda and the script and said, it's all yours, Mr. President. And I finally got a chance to get back at him, because up until that point, he got me involved in the Patriots Pantry, holding hundreds of pounds of food every week down to the VA, loading it and unloading it by myself. And he thought it was a great thing. He just loaded up my truck and sent me off the way. So I figured, well, what the heck? He can't get me to do anything else. One day he asked me, he said, hey, what do you think about the rusted spurs doing a presentation here? We'll make some money. We can make probably $2,000. He said, I've got this thing all set up. It's on this date, but I'm going to be in Maine or wherever he went during the event. And he said, I need a chairman. I said, whoa, that's a big job. He said, well, you're going to do it. So I took over and did rusted spurs. And of course, he had it all designed perfectly. But I'll bet there's nobody in this room that can say that Richard did everything except the kitchen sink. But he had me install the kitchen sink in his house. How do you turn down Richard? So Richard, if it wasn't for Gidget, I would have come back. It's been a pleasure, and I'm going to miss the guy a bunch.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we double the pay of whoever picks up the donuts. No one has mentioned Dave Ford yet, so I'd like just a couple of comments on David. Two things I remember about him. First of all, it was always out in his garage, open, but with coffee for anyone that would stop by. And the second thing, again, in contributing to the community, you would line up someplace to go eat on a holiday or a special day. And he would contact people and line it up and kind of supervise it, going out as a group on a special holiday or a special day. And certainly that was a commitment to Sunflower, both of those, to help everyone in the community.
It's on. You turn it on, it's on.
Dave was also a friend of mine, considerably different personality than Richard Long. But Millie and I had dinner a few times with Joan and Dave, and very quiet, unassuming people, didn't say very much. I visited her yesterday a little bit. She couldn't make it here today because she had a doctor's appointment. And I had kind of lost touch with Dave over the last few years or months. But something that many people don't know, when he was here and younger, and I've been here 20 years and so was he used to every morning get up early, I don't, and he would straighten the chairs up around the swimming pool. Nobody asked him to do it, he would just do it every day, and I don't think very many people knew that he did that. And then he finally got to the age where he stopped doing it. But nice fellow, good person. Thank you.
Tim? Tim?
Yeah, David.
Hi. Good morning, folks. I'm your former secretary, David Van Osdal. Hi, Bruce. Thank you for taking over. And we are now down here in on post at Fort Huachuca, starting our assisted living phase of life. It's beautiful. Both those gentlemen and Richard, I'm sad to have that happen, but it was a pleasure being with them and working with them. Also, Tom, Dick, I don't want to miss any of you, and Gordy. You've all you helped me learn a lot while we were there at Sunflower, and thanks for letting us into your life. We have an extra bedroom, a guest room here on post, so please come down and visit us. We'd love to see you. And Kathy and I will be up next week for Richard's memorial. So again, don't let that organization go bye-bye, folks. Keep it going. And I know Larry's going to do the best. So again, just want to say hi, and we will see you next week. Thanks.
I just wanted to say that Richard was an interesting contrast in characteristics. He was very creative, yet he was very organized. And I think that we have all benefited from that in our community. He was also socially liberal and fiscally conservative, which is something that we don't see very often anymore. And besides being a wonderful friend, he was a wonderful, he was the gem of this community, and we will all miss him.
Well, I was Richard's, and this is going to be hard. Richard's vice president for as long as he was president, and his ability was beyond me. That's why I couldn't take over after him. His technology that he brought into this community of veterans, especially during COVID, when we met and we said, how are we going to reach out to our vets? And they can't be isolated. It just can't be. And he started the PayPal and how to put on those barbecues and the cookout. And we kept on going. And I don't know what we would have done and what the club would have ended up as if we hadn't have just plugged away. And it was all because of him knowing how to do all that. And he got tech people involved, Larry, to help. And it just all came together. And he had takeaway. We could eat here. Whatever you wanted to do, just so we could get this community of veterans to have a place and to see somebody, talk to somebody. And I know he struggled with that during COVID especially. And I just wish I wish he rests in peace and just God bless him for what he did for a club.
Just loved about him what he loved. He loved his dog so much, and that was just really special. She was a sweetheart.
I'm Jody Sherman. I'm Richard's younger sister, and I've had many of you over the years. And I listened to many rules and years when he was in Maine. I'm guilty. We had the camp in Maine. So he would abandon you in your warm, sunny Tucson and come to Maine and let Gidget out in the snow. She loved it. And he would go to a place in Skowhegan to get his hair cut while he was there. And the first time he went, the guy said, I don't know you. Now Skowhegan's 7,000-8,000 people. And it's, you know, don't use a charge card at this barbershop. I mean, it's, you know, backwoods. And the guy asked him where he was from, and he said he was from Arizona. And this was like January. And we had the path into the barber shop. It was a little house set a ways back, and the street was about a shovel wide, and the walls on each side of it were, because we had a big storm. It's very funny. And the barber said to him, you came from Arizona to Maine in January. And Richard, being the smart aleck that he was, said, well, I know when my winter begins and I know when it ends. And you can't say that. Because of course we all know that Maine really only has 3 seasons: winter, mud season, damn poor sledding. So he would come to Maine and he loved to cook. You know, I would come here and do the barbecues with him or the soup kitchen with him, but we'd come up there and cook for all my husband's ski bum friends that would show up to see him eat. And I should probably tell you that Gidget is fine. His nephew rescued Gidget from Las Cruces very shortly after Richard died. And he is living with Ginny, who most of you probably remember. I'm currently in Las Cruces finding the things that Keith forgot to take home for Gidget. I often heard his conversations with you because, of course, he was a little more than slightly deaf. And so when he was on Zoom meetings with you, he would say, what was that? He'd want me there so I could, translate or whatever. He lives a big hole. And if you're gonna miss him, lots of people are gonna miss him. Thank you.
Okay, if there's not anyone else, oh, go ahead,
I
Dan.
just want to say one last thing. All of us are old enough to remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And one of the last lines in the movie was every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And I'd like if Don would ring the bell for both David and Richard, kind of wraps up the day and sends the message. Thank you.
Okay, and we have time if you want to play the video, Tim. This is something Tim put together. Thanks for putting that together, Ken. Well, now we can move on to the rest of the meeting. Treasurer's report, Gordon.
Well, that was a hard one to follow, I'm here now to say. To me, the biggest thing about Richard, do this second, was his ability to do everything and bring us into thinking that it was kind of our idea, but it was really his. And he just kind of guided you down that road. I think our challenge as a group now, when we went to the first meeting after his passing, it was like the air was sucked out. And that hurt. So our challenge is to be tighter as a group, more of a step up and do the things that he did, that we just kind of let him take the lead, and it's up to us now to do that. Like Richard, my first duty station after boot camp was in the Aleutians, not a beautiful city like Fairbanks. We were on a 2 by 3 mile island with nothing. And I volunteered for Vietnam after that. Something's got to be. Also, if you walk into our living room, in the corner of our sofa is one of Richard's quilts that I go by and I think about. Hurts. And Dennis, the check's in the mail. As a treasurer, I can promise you your raise is in the mail. Yeah, right. So on to the report. Our beginning balance was $5,611.78. Our donations from the can were $96. And on the 5th, I made a deposit of $492 for tickets from the barbecue. On the 13th, Tim gave us a check for $1,000 for the brokerage on 2 homes. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate it. On the 16th, another $204 for barbecue ticket sales. As far as expenses, we made a donation to the Veterans Volunteer Services for $1,000. MIAP, Missing in Action, we donated $500 to. I passed along the $1,000 that Richard donated for Patriots Pantry. Also, I wrote a check for Sharon's expenses for putting together the barbecue and all the things that she did for that. And also we did a $900 donation to the Arizona Veterans Memorial Cemetery Fund. We picked $900 because that's what we hear is the price of a spouse to be buried alongside with an eligible vet. That left us a total closing balance of $3,565.51. And finally, this morning, Mr. Daggett, thank you for a check for $1,000. We appreciate that also.
Okay. We'll go on to old business. November potluck. And I don't want to ask Carol to walk up here, so if you can take her a mic, Tim. Shut it off.
Well, we got the November potluck. It's our regular monthly potluck. And this month, every November, we do the potluck as the Veterans Club to benefit DAV on Ina Road. And we're selling tickets. I've got 6 tables sold, and I'm going to sell again after this meeting, 11 to 12. And hope to see you all on the 9th. If you can make it, is the next pop-up. And again, proceeds going to DAV.
Thank you, Carol. Next item on the agenda is flags for Veterans Day. We're gonna be putting out flags Veterans Day, starting at 6:30 in the morning, picking them up at 5:30 in the evening. And we can use all the volunteers we can get, so we can use all the volunteers we can get for that. Also, at the Veterans Cemetery on November 9th, they're putting out flags at 8 a.m. So anybody who wants to go out for that, they're like all the volunteers they can get, and just wear your sunflower shirts if you go out for that. And then Veterans Day, Dan.
And just real quick, Veterans Day, we've got Jennifer Gutowski from the Veterans Hospital is going to be our keynote speaker, and that'll be very interesting for us all. I do have a need for greeters, people that can stand around and greet people as they come to the event. If you'd wear your shirts and just look me up after you're done planting flags. After you're done planting flags, come and volunteer and help us greet people that come to recognize us as veterans and our families as families of veterans. We have a special treat. The Boy Scouts will be here from Green Valley to do a special flag presentation to open our event. And the Pickleball Club has volunteered to host everybody on the patio for coffee and donuts. And again, thanks to Mark for providing the donuts. So hope to see you all there. It's going to be a big event.
Thank you, Dan. Under new business, I've been contacted by the president of the Oro Valley Veterans Club. They're hosting a 3-club potluck on December 3rd. So if you would like to attend that, let me know, and I can get you on the list. They will have an open mic, so if you have any stories you want to tell, they're more than welcome there. So yeah, just let me know. And then Patriots Pantry, we need donations. They're really hurting right now with the holidays coming up. So some of the things they need: granola bars, pasta sauce. Let's see, what else do I have here? Mac and cheese, applesauce cups, the little individual servings of applesauce cups, all that kind of thing. And you can just put them in the basket out here. We'll make sure they get down there. Dan will make sure they get down there.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, and are there any new attendees or returning attendees? Okay. Then under For Good of the Cause, Dick 2 is trying to raise money. In fact, he is going to raise money for a bench for Richard out at the Veterans Cemetery. And we're not going to do it as a club, we're going to do it as individuals. So if you want to donate, get a hold of Richard, and Richard, if you want to.
First of all, I don't think everybody here knows the difference between the Veterans Club here and the charitable arm of the military cemetery, which is the Arizona Veterans Memorial Cemetery Foundation. Tom is chairman of that foundation, and many of us in the club are in both organizations. Larry, myself, Jimmy Strock,
Gordon or Gordon Barron used to be, West Durst. When you donate money to the cemetery, if you give it to the state, it's not tax deductible. The donation you give to me is really going to be if you so choose, is a donation to our foundation, of which Tom is the chairman, and Katie, I've forgotten her last name, but of Sunflower is the treasurer. So right now, when the cemetery first started 7 years ago, this club was about the second donor to the cemetery. And we had a meeting here before the cemetery was actually finished, they were under construction. If you go out there, if you've been out there, you'll see many, many memorials to people in Sunflower. Some of whom have a memorial there and they don't even know it yet. And they have concrete benches which require a donation of $500. Now, the cost to us as a foundation is around $200. So the additional $300 is used by the foundation to do things for the cemetery. And the foundation, since it started, has generated over $300,000 of tax deductible donations to the cemetery to beautify and to change. Many of the things out at that cemetery were not paid for by the state, they were paid for by us. And the small things that require a lot of paperwork to go through the purchasing situation can be very effectively done by just simply our foundation paying the money. It requires $500 to buy one of these benches. Because there's construction going on out there right now, there's a temporary suspension of the benches, but there are 3 or 4 unlabeled benches now. And underneath the Caroline, there happens to be 2 benches. One is not taken. The second one is in honor of Mike Agora, and that was paid for by his wife. We're going to be buying a bench for Richard in that premium location right underneath the Caroline. And thanks to the generosity of many of my friends, including Tim, who's donated 250 of it, we've already arranged for more than, we've already have cash and pledges for more than 400 of the 500. If you're going to make a significant donation, it should be done by check to our foundation. And that way it's tax deductible to you. If you're going to donate cash and you don't file the long form and all that, cash will be accepted, and believe me, it'll be accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Another good for the cause. I got a call this morning from Tony, and his daughter's here, and he wanted to give a message onto the club.
So a lot of you probably don't know my dad anymore because he's 94 years old.
Say his name.
Tony Ivanilio. Do any of you remember him?
Yeah.
Good. So he is in home hospice now, and it's very important to him that you as a vet club know that he is in hospice. And he really misses coming. I hope I can keep coming to go home and tell him what you all talked about.
Take a donut.
I did, it's in my purse. Why do you think he hasn't even come? And just while I'm standing, I forget your title for the DAB. What is your title again? Commander. In July, you sent me to the DAB, and I just want you to know how absolutely wonderful Art is. He's very helpful.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
Just in relation to Denny's comments, Tony and his wife Sharon, she was a Marine, he's in the Navy, or was in the Navy, used to sit right there at every club meeting. And we had invited Eli Crane, the guy who started the beer can opener thing. And he presented them with a product designed after Iwo Jima. And they were the recipients of that item. And I did the interview with Tony a year or so ago, and his wife Sharon. She was an original here in Tucson. Went to school where the sign for the Moran is on Port Dearborn out there. That's where he went to school back in the day. Anyways, I remember them well. Thank you.
If you don't know me, I'm the commander of Chapter 4 BAV. I'd like to thank you for all the donations you give to us. They're for a good cause. And I also like to remind you that on Monday, November 13th at Golden Corral, if you're a veteran, go get a free dinner. It's free for the veterans. If you take your wife or a friend, they'll have to pay, but you yourself are free. So November 13th, Monday, starting from 5 to whenever. So if you want a free dinner, and I mean, Golden Corral, you don't know where to begin. You just have too much food. And also a reminder, we're open from Monday to Friday, 9 to 3. We have 2 or more service offers to help you. And don't forget a widow. We help widows. It's called a DIC. It's only 20 pages long, so I don't think they can do it themselves, but we can put it out within an hour and a half. So if there's any widows, or if you know of any widows, please send them to us. We're there to help the veterans and the widows and the orphans. Thank you so much.
Anything else for the good of the cause? Okay, then with that, we are adjourned.